מזמור לדוד. אדוני אלוהי לא יחסר, בינתש ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני. נפשי ישובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק, למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות, לא יירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי. דשנת בשם מראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בית אדוני לאורך ימים.
As Cantor Shipman began our service by chanting Psalm 23 in the Hebrew, please join with me in the English in the comforting words of our biblical psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, ki Yishem Adonai mevarach. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. We gather together today to express our deep abiding love, honor, and respect, and to say goodbye to our beloved Hannah, who was taken from us this week. And our hearts are heavy with grief, and it was a great source of strength and love to her family and friends, and was in turn very beloved. We're here together to honor her memory, but also to evoke memories of her that bring comfort during this difficult time, to bring healing to all who knew her and loved her. We're going to hear from a number of members of the family first today, beginning with Judy. Begin with who's first? Okay, beginning with the granddaughters, Meredith and Paige.
So we're just going to tell a couple memories of Grandma. First of all, I think we all are really super sad that Grandma's passed, but know that she's in peace, and we're happy that she can finally rest. My story is that growing up, Grandma was always presented herself very elegantly and beautiful, and that was for the outside world, but she actually let us be a part of her inside world, and she had this amazing closet dressing room where she had a table set up, and she would sit every morning and get herself ready, and we got to be a part of that process of her putting on her makeup and doing her hair, and she had a very special ritual, and then she would have this special silk scarf that she would wrap around her head before she put her clothes on so it wouldn't mess up her hair or her makeup, and we got to be a part of that, and she taught us how to take care of ourselves, and so we got to be a part of that inner world, and just really special times for us as we grew up.
And as we got older, we could really appreciate the amazing relationship and marriage that our grandparents had. They set the bar really high for what a marriage should be. I can't remember a time when my grandpa's hand wasn't on her leg. They weren't holding hands. They weren't laughing. I constantly at a restaurant, in the car, he'd always have his hand on her leg. And the two of them, just the love that they had for each other, always. It just was amazing, and it's something that we hope we can come close to having that amazing experience and to have so much time together. Like, our grandma was an amazing, amazing woman who always was loving and caring and strong and gorgeous and just a wonderful person, and she's going to be missed.
I always found when I went to funerals of my friends and their parents had died and I knew nothing about them, I always enjoyed the stories people would tell, so I got to know them a little bit better. And I know none of you really know my mother-in-law because when she moved here, she was already deep in the throes of Alzheimer's. So I was talking with my father-in-law yesterday and I said, exactly how did you and Mom meet? So I'm going to tell you their story. My mother-in-law, Hannah Fisch, and that name is very important, lived in the Bronx, and when she was 16 years old, her family moved to a small community for a summer home in Lincolndale, New York, which is probably about half an hour, well, probably more like a 45-minute drive from the Bronx where they lived. My father-in-law, his family had lived there for 10 years already. So my mother-in-law and her family have moved in, and Bob Swimmer catches the eye of Hannah Fisch and asks her to go out. And she turns him down cold. And she said, no, she says to her mother, I won't go out with him. He's nasty. And her mother goes, how do you know he's nasty? And she said, my friend told me that he's very nasty to her. And turns out that her friend had the hots for him, and because of that, she told him how nasty he was. So her mother said to her, Hannah, you need to make some friends. Do not reject this young man. You need to go out with him. He's lived here a long time. He knows everybody. So she said, okay. So they go to Palisades Amusement Park, which was a big amusement park in New Jersey at the time. And they spend the day there. And as he said, they went up in the Ferris wheel, and he tried to kiss her. And she turned him down flat on that. So they continued on, and I guess this is the strangest thing I've ever heard, but there was a booth where you could win a bird in a bird cage. I guess they decided that was a long time ago. Fish made much more sense later on. But anyway, they did birds back then. So there were 100 numbers you could choose from, and then there was a wheel. So he said to Hannah, when is your birthday? So she gave him the August 9th. So he places the money on 9. Sure enough, they win. So she gets this bird in the cage. So they're thinking, what should we name this bird? What should we name this bird? And they came up with the name of Tuna Fish Swimmer. And 4 years later, they were married. So guys, if you ever get a rejection, keep going. But I just want you to know that never say a fish can't marry a swimmer and live happily ever after.
I've got a couple of notes, but I promise Judy I won't be too long. I just don't want to forget what I need to say. A few of you knew my mom a bit, but most of you did not. And when I think about what I got from my mom, I think number one on the list is her moral code. And a story I don't remember, but she told over and over again, was when I was in first grade, and she was a class mother on a class trip, and whatever the class trip was, that when we got off the school bus, we had to have a buddy hold hands and stay together so you didn't get lost. And this African-American boy comes up and wants to be my buddy, and I said no. And my mom was fuming. She held her temper till we got home, so she was then going to yell at me, and I said, but Mom, he always spits at me. And so my mom was a little taken aback, but what she taught me after that was it's okay if you've got a personal disagreement, but whether it's race, religion, anything else, you don't avoid or dislike someone because of those. And that was, I think, the beginning of the moral code that she passed on to me. Another thing that, a memory, and this is kind of my dad yesterday had forgotten all about it when I reminded him, was my sister who was developmentally challenged, and when my mom, once I was old enough to watch my sister who was 3 years younger, she got involved in a lot of organizations and would go and volunteer and do everything. So I was a teenager, and it seemed to me like she was out every night. I was cooking dinner a lot. And I said to her one time, I must have gotten angry, and I said, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to call it My Mother Goes to Meetings. But the last, and I think this is really the most important story, is after my parents retired and moved to Hilton Head, and this is a story about really giving back to a community. My mom and dad each were looking for some work to volunteer. My dad worked for Habitat for Humanity for many years, and my mom spoke to someone who knew a lot of volunteering options, and the woman said, "Do you know computers?" And my mom said, yes, she did. She'd worked at a bank. She was an assistant VP, and said, well, there's this doctor who needs some help, and it was a retired doctor who was starting an organization called Volunteers in Medicine. He had been working fundraising to build a building, had gotten the town of Hilton Head to donate land, and he needed someone to basically run the back office on a volunteer basis, be in charge of all the intake and outtake of customers, files, etc. So the two of them started this organization. He had done a lot of the groundwork, and over the years it grew. And yesterday when we were with Rabbi Weiss, I looked online. This organization now has 90 centers, 13 more in process. And this is free medical for people who can't afford it. In 2018, they had over 350,000 patient visits, and they had over 10,000 volunteers. And my mom was one of the two people who started that. And she really was someone who gave back. And Mom, I love you. I'm sorry.
You all shared such beautiful memories and stories, and it's evident how deeply you all loved Hannah, what she meant to each of you, and to you as well, Bob. Even though you did not stand up here to speak, we know what you're feeling in your heart, what's going through your mind at this time. Each of you, your love for Hannah touches the rest of us very deeply, even those of us who didn't know her personally. Can learn to admire her and to feel how special she was through the love that you hold for her. The rabbis tell a very beautiful legend in which they suggest that once God gave one of his angels the sacred task of coming down to earth, and here on earth seeking to find the one thing most precious in the whole world, the most beautiful, valuable thing in the world. And an angel came down to earth looking for that one thing. And wandering across the globe, the angel at one point was passing through a garden and it saw a rose. And I thought the rose was just divinely beautiful. And so the angel brought that rose to heaven. But convinced there might still be something even more beautiful yet, the angel returned to the earth to search again. This time the angel passed by the window of a house and heard the cry of a baby and looked inside and saw the baby's smile. And the angel thought, the smile of a baby, that is a wondrous, beautiful thing. And so the angel took the smile of the baby to heaven. Still not satisfied he had found the most beautiful thing in the world, the most precious, the angel returned a third time to earth and circled the globe again and again, until in its journey it came across a mother devotedly going about the work of caring for her children. And the angel said to himself, now this is surely the most beautiful, the most precious thing in the whole world. There is nothing like the love of a mother. And so the angel took the mother's love to heaven. And it's true, there is nothing like the love of a mother, of a grandmother, of a great-grandmother. The strength, the devotion to family, the care and concern, the nurturing, teaching of values, the guiding. We owe so much of who we are to our mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers. They live in us. And that was certainly so very true of Hannah, who was such an extraordinary mother and grandmother and great-grandmother. Bob, I want to begin by addressing you. It was very moving to me to sit and talk and reminisce with you along with the rest of the family yesterday. It was especially moving to me because you were so bursting with love for your bride that even when our conversation had turned to other things from other aspects of her life or relationships with your children or the community, you couldn't help but share again and again memories of the times you had spent together, how extraordinarily special she was to you, how deep your love was for her, how much joy she brought into your life. That was the word that you used. You said that your relationship was pure joy. You told me that Hannah was elegant and delicious, beautiful, smart, strong, independent. You told me that she made you a happy man. You've all heard the story now of how they met. And I would just add to that story that in the midst of that story, Bob, you were called away to Korea, drafted by the army. You served overseas as a medic. And the entire time you were gone, the two of you wrote letters to each other nearly every day. And when you came back, you resumed that relationship right where you left off. You were so in love, it was as if you were never gone. And you were married on that afternoon of Sunday, June 18th, 1950 in Manhattan, in a hotel ballroom. And I asked you what hotel, and you didn't remember. The building wasn't so important. What you did remember was the hotel was near a restaurant called, I think, Tough and Eddie's. Am I saying that right? It was a restaurant that was famous for its pumpkin pie. And you shared that the two of you got married, and then you walked outside after the wedding and realized that neither one of you had eaten. You were so busy celebrating with those that were there. And you were famished. So you ducked into Tough and Eddie's for pumpkin pie together. And that was your wedding meal. The two of you enjoyed an extraordinary life together. You did everything together. You loved to travel across the U.S. and in countries around the world. Together you visited Africa 3 times, and Asia 3 times, Europe 6 or 7 times. You went to 9 elder hostels where you traveled and learned together. You traveled together through the U.S., trips to Russia, and of course to Israel. The two of you loved to play tennis together and to dance and just to spend time with your friends because you were both very social and had a large circle of friends, or to go to the movies. And everywhere you went, as your granddaughters noted, you always held hands. always. And you didn't just hold hands. As you held hands, you kind of rubbed your fingers with each other. And that rubbing of the fingers was an active way of expressing your deep love for each other. And even during Hannah's decline, you would be by her side holding her hand. You would be rubbing each other's fingers. The day before she passed, you held her hand all day long, as you always did, playing with her fingers, reassuring her that you were by her side, letting her feel your love, letting her know how precious and important she was to you. One of the things that you loved about Hannah was that she was a strong and independent woman. In fact, you shared that the two of you went on a joint honeymoon to Canada with another couple. It was a long drive to Montreal and then to Quebec. Hannah insisted on driving. The rest of you, all three, fell asleep in the car. When suddenly she woke you all up and you saw that you were in the middle of a herd of cattle. She said, "I think I went the wrong way." But despite the wrong turn, that story is a great metaphor for Hannah's life, because she liked to be in the driver's seat. She was in control of her life. She had vision, a commitment to friends, family, and community, a desire to make a difference. And she would make that difference. She would bring it about. And nowhere did that drive to make a difference and that love and care and concern come through more clearly than in connection with Leslie, Brad's sister, your daughter. She made sure that Leslie always was seen, always treated with love and respect, and got every possible help and support that she could so that she could live as independently as possible and could feel loved. And that's why she went to all those meetings that Brad talked about. It took her away from the house, but it also taught you, Brad, what it meant to care for people who had needs and what it meant to be devoted to family. And that was very important. Bob, the two of you ultimately retired to Hilton Head. You kept yourselves very busy there with your social life, often getting together with friends. Every evening, the two of you, and it came to be also family when they were with you, or friends, would sit down together for a yardarm. Now, in case you don't know what a yardarm is, I didn't know either until I sat with the family yesterday. The yardarm refers to the horizontal bar that goes across the mast of a ship. Think of the tall ships, like from the time of the British Empire, which had very large square sails. And so there was a bar across the top and a bar at the bottom that held the sail in place on the mast. And that top bar on the forward mast, that is the yardarm. And why is the yardarm so significant? Because if you were sailing in the North Atlantic and you were sailing east toward the sun in the morning, the sail would block the view of the sun until it rose above the yardarm and you could see the sun. That would be at about 11 o'clock in the morning, just before noon. And in the days of the British Empire, that was considered a sign that it was time for the stand easy, a late morning break when the ship's officers would go below deck to have their first shot of rum. The phrase over the yardarm or sun over the yardarm came later to refer to any time that was a good time to have a drink. And Bob, you and Hannah decided a good time to have a drink was each evening, and you would call it your yardarm. Every evening you would sit down together for drinks, often vodka on the rocks, just the two of you or with family or friends who were there. to discuss the day's adventures. It became a very special time in your family. Your granddaughters know what yardarms are and still do them. Their friends who would come to visit with you in Hilton Head learned what a yardarm is, and some of them still do yardarms too. It took on a life of its own. It was a very special time to share what happened during the day, to bond with each other. After retirement, the two of you were afraid that you might get bored. So you agreed that you would both take part-time jobs in industries in which you had never worked before. Bob, you took a job in a plant nursery. Hannah started working for an optometry office and then a bank. And you also did a lot of volunteer work. And you were active at Congregation Beth Yam in Hilton Head. And you developed a wonderful, close relationship with Rabbi Bloom, who lived on your street. I spoke with Rabbi Bloom, Bob, and he was heartbroken to hear of Hannah's passing. And he asked me to send his love and prayers to you. And he spoke to me at great length about how wonderful the two of you both were, how much he enjoyed your company, how much he admired you. He talked about the incredible volunteer work that the two of you did. He described the two of you as, his words, Abraham and Sarah, incredibly dedicated to the community and to each other like no one else. He shared with me, Bob, that Hannah was, along with you, very big in Habitat for Humanity, and that the two of you were also the force behind the unique annual event at the synagogue, one that Brad, you had alluded to yesterday, but I never got the details from you, but Rabbi Bloom filled me in, the Tshuva Ride. Each fall before Rosh Hashanah, members of the congregation would gather, mostly older members, and would together bike about 45 minutes to the beach, where you would all sit down by the ocean and talk about Teshuvah with the rabbi. It's a really beautiful event. I might try to duplicate that here, although I don't know if riding to Lake Erie will feel quite the same. And he talked also at great length about the amazing volunteer work which Hannah did with volunteers in medicine that Brad just spoke about so beautifully. How extraordinary that she and Dr. Jack McConnell together created something that grew from one doctor's ability to service a very limited number of people to a national network that services hundreds of thousands. What an extraordinary accomplishment. And she was part of the force that brought that about and made it happen. It could not have happened without her. She and Dr. McConnell were never honored for that accomplishment. She didn't receive honors for her volunteer work. She did all of it out of the joy of helping people. That's what mattered most to her. And Brad, despite the fact that your mom was gone to a lot of meetings, you shared with me that she was still, in fact, an extraordinary mother. In fact, you told me that all your friends told you that you had the cool parents. They said that your mom got them, understood them and what they were about and what they did in a way that other parents just didn't get. Yes, your mom was gone at those meetings and busy spending extra time taking care of Leslie. In some ways, this forced you to grow up a little faster, but you also found that you were trusted and you were granted a lot of independence. By the time you were a teenager, your mother treated you as an adult. You were always respected. Your opinion always mattered. And so you had a beautiful, mature relationship with your parents as a result of that. And that enabled you to blossom into the wonderful person that you are. You learned from your mother not only what it means to care about family, but also to show love, respect, and dignity to those who are developmentally challenged. And, as you reflected, to treat all people the same regardless of their race or creed or background. She taught you all the values that you live by. And doing so set a path for you in life and laid down a legacy for you to pass on to your children. And Judah, you shared with me that from the day that you first met, I think you were 16 at the time, Hannah treated you like her own daughter, like a beloved part of the family, and the two of you enjoyed a beautiful, loving relationship. You said she was easy to talk to, and importantly, you could complain to her about Brad. Brad was quick to let me know that was only about small things. And you shared that she was also a great role model for you as you grew older. That you admired her independence, how she always said what she believed, stood for her principles, was caring, and knew how to keep her cool. Meredith and Paige, you told me that your grandmother was amazing. You talked about how she always dressed the nine so elegantly. And I loved that story that you shared. You shared it with me yesterday about how you watched her get dressed in the morning. You left off one piece of that story, though. You told me that as a result of watching her routine, that the two of you often, when you got dressed, would wrap a scarf around your head also before you got dressed, even though you weren't doing makeup or doing your hair. That was just the way you got dressed. It's a beautiful story. And Meredith, you shared with me that you also even learned something from your grandmother that was useful to you in your work. You are a buyer for Target, and among the things that you buy are tights. And you shared you were talking with somebody else about the panels on the tights that help hold them up. When you realized and shared with them that, you don't really need that. All you need is to put a second pair of underwear over the tights. Your great-grandmother, when you were very young, she used to bring you gum. Then she passed. And your grandmother Hannah would bring you gum. She would say it was from her mother. And you believed her for many years. You were sure that your great-grandmother must have left behind a big stash of gum with instructions that your grandmother Hannah should give it to you each time. And she kept this up right through your college years, even after you figured it out. And Paige, when you were younger and were having trouble with coughing a lot, she used to bring you Jolly Ranchers. She called them Jolly Rogers. She taught both of you how to gamble, especially craps, which she taught you first using a board game. And if she was at a craps table with you and the table was quiet, she knew how to work the crowd. Craps table should not be quiet. There should be a lot of shouting and screaming, people engaged in the game. And she always brought life to those tables. She brought life everywhere she was. She was very social. She loved being with people. A great joke teller. She wasn't a great cook and she didn't sew. But boy, she knew how to be with people. How to make people feel good. How to build connection. So many wonderful memories exist of all your times visiting in Hilton Head. How you brought your friends down, how they shared in the yardarms. Times together at the swimming pool and at the beach. Times I know that you will always cherish. And how she always was fond of saying she was 27 years old. And how long it took you to figure out that wasn't true. What an extraordinary woman. Principled, loving, compassionate, selfless, living by the highest moral standards, trusting and accepting everyone in her family and her friends without judgment, always inspiring through the amazing ways that she gave to those around her and helped transform the spaces around her to make people's lives better and a better community. And in the end, for all that she transformed all those lives, through all that she did, no lives more transformed than those right here in this room. You, her family, who are what you are because of her. We're in the month of Kislev now. This is the month of Chanukah. The holiday is soon upon us. And as you know, the central mitzvah of Chanukah is the lighting of the Chanukiah, the Chanukah menorah. 8 candles that we light. We begin with one, and each night we add another. The rabbis say that we do that to show that we are ma'alim b'kodesh, that we are going up in holiness. And we increase the light that we bring into the world night by night. Hannah brought a lot of light into this world. You know, when you light that Chanukiah, you can't just take a match and light the candles, right? We don't do that. First you light the shamash, the servant candle, the enabling candle. And then you use that candle to light all the others. It is the light of the shamash candle that enables all the other candles to shine their light. And your grandmother, your children's great-grandmother, your mother, your wife, she was a shamash. She was the shamash candle. She not only was filled with light, but she enabled all of your lights to shine. Made that light come into the world. Hold on to that light. Keep it close to your heart. Let it continue to bring you joy. Let it continue to inspire you and to guide you as you go forward. We send our love and prayers and condolences to each of you. To Hannah's sister Ethel, to her sister-in-law, to her brothers-in-law Milton, Judy of blessed memory, and Carla, to Eugene and Carol, to you, Bob, her loving husband, to you, Brad and Judy. We remember Leslie. To you, Meredith and Michael and Paige and Greg. And to those precious great-grandchildren, the jewels in our crown, the greatest source of joy of all, Maxwell and Oliver, Kira and Porter. She loved all of you. She still does, as you love her. And though she's physically gone, she'll always be with you. Our tradition teaches the body dies, but the soul lives on eternally, bound to its creator. She's still here with you. And in another sense, we live on through the deeds that we perform. And that she leaves behind a great legacy. May her memory always be for blessing, and may her light always shine in your lives and in our world. And we say it together, Amen. Let's rise now for the memorial prayer.
אלמלא רחמים שוכן במרומים, המצא מנוחה נכונה